Hello, everyone. My name again is Dakota Morgan. I'm a policy fellow with Minnesota Coalition for the Homeless, but more importantly, I'm before you today as a leader, as a scholar, and as an advocate. But I'm also a foster care alumni and formerly homeless young adult. I'm living proof that prevention works. There was a time in my life when stability was not guaranteed. When I aged out of care, the structure that had shaped my childhood disappeared almost overnight. I was expected to step into adulthood fully prepared financially, emotionally, logistically, without the safety net many young people take for granted. I know what it feels like to carry everything you own in a bag, to wonder where you will sleep, to show up to school and leadership spaces while privately fighting for your own survival. And yet, I also stand here as someone who pursued exceptional schooling, someone who stepped into leadership roles, someone who transformed lived experience into research, organizing, and policy advocacy. I built community, I earned opportunities, and I found my voice. But let me be abundantly clear. Resilience should not be a prerequisite for housing. No young person should have to be extraordinary just to stay housed. That is why Homeless Day on the Hill matters. This year looks different because of the many pressures facing Minnesota: rising costs, political tension, and the increased presence of federal immigration enforcement. We are pre recording this program because of all of these things. There is uncertainty in the air. Families feel it, young people feel it, service providers feel it, and in uncertain times, our values must be certain. When we talk about sustain the gain, we are talking about protecting the progress this state has made in homelessness prevention. We are talking about refusing to move backward into a crisis only response. We are saying that our investments we have made are working and they must continue. Local homeless prevention aid gives communities flexible resources to intervene before any eviction becomes a shelter stay. FHPAP, the Family Homeless Prevention and Assistance Program administered by Minnesota Housing, is one of the most effective prevention tools in this state. It steps in at the moment of instability. It keeps families housed. It keeps youth connected to school, and it stops trauma before it multiplies. And for foster care alumni, prevention is not optional. It is life altering. Young people who age out of foster care are disproportionately represented in the homelessness system, not because we lack talent, not because we lack ambition, but because we often lack guaranteed stability at the exact moment when we are expected to become independent. Without intentional prevention, the pathway from foster care to homelessness becomes predictable, but it doesn't have to be. If we align housing prevention with foster care transition planning, if we prioritize foster alumni and rental assistance, eviction prevention, and navigation support, we interrupt that pipeline before it actually begins. Prevention saves money, prevention saves futures, and prevention saves lives. And I want to be clear about something else. I believe housing is for everyone, not just citizens, not just people with documentation, not those deemed politically convenient. Everyone. Housing is not a reward. It is not a bargaining chip. It is not something that you should expand or shrink depending on federal rhetoric. Housing is foundational infrastructure. It stabilizes families, strengthens schools, supports workforce participation, and protects public health. When we exclude immigrants from accessing housing support, we do not solve homelessness, we create it. There is a lot of uncertainty in the world right now. Policies have shifted, enforcement increases, political narratives that divide. But if there is one thing that will remain certain without just divisive action, it is this: homelessness will grow if prevention becomes conditional. Eviction does not ask us about immigration status. Homelessness does not check citizenship before it harms someone. Instability does not separate foster youth who are part of immigrant families from the broader system. It compounds their vulnerability. If our prevention systems are selective, they will fail. If our compassion is conditional, it will fracture our communities. If our housing policies are partisan, they will not endure. The solution to homelessness must be bipartisan, and it must be non exclusive. Housing stability strengthens the entire state. When one family remains housed, schools remain stable, workforces remain intact, communities remain safer, and public systems save money. Sustain the gain is more than a budget request. It's a declaration that we will not retreat from what works. Fully funding local homeless prevention aid and FHPAP is not just smart policy, it is moral clarity. It is choosing long-term stability over short-term crisis. It is choosing prevention over punishment. It is choosing inclusion over exclusion. I am proud of what I have accomplished. My education, my leadership, my advocacy, but I do not want my story to be exceptional. I want every foster care alumni to enter adulthood with stable housing. I want it to be ordinary. I want every immigrant family to know that stability is not up for debate. I want every young person in Minnesota to build their future on solid ground, not survival mode. There may be uncertainty in politics, there may be uncertainty in federal direction, but there should be no uncertainty about this. Housing is foundational. Prevention works, and homelessness is solvable if we refuse to exclude anyone from the solution. I stand here not just as someone who survived instability, but as someone who benefited from prevention. When you invest early, when you intervene wisely, when you sustain the gain, you do more than keep people housed. You unlock leadership, you unlock education, you unlock potential, and that is the Minnesota we must continue to build. Thank you.